What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and as you can tell, he's joining us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, following North Carolina's 70-57 win over Pittsburgh on that court right there behind AJ. Carolina improving to 10-3 overall, 2-0 in ACC play. Let me just run through some stats real quick, AJ, and then we'll dive into the meat of this podcast, for lack of a better word. Armando Bacot led the way, 16 points, 10 boards. RJ Davis, 15 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Cormac Ryan right there behind him with 10 points and 7 rebounds. Seth Trimble finished with 10 points, and then Harrison Ingram had a poor shooting night for the most part, just 2 for 14, 7 points, but 15 rebounds. So a good night on the glass for Ingram, despite a pretty poor shooting night. But AJ, was a relatively poor shooting night for both teams tonight, particularly in that first half. Carolina shooting just 36.5% from the floor on the night, and Pittsburgh shooting just 30.9%. So even worse than the Tar Heels. And that's where I want to start, because we have to give credit to Carolina defensively to what they did against Pittsburgh tonight. Contested shots, and I think number one, Blake Henson was a guy that a lot of people had circled coming into this game, leading the way for the Panthers. I believe he leads the league in points right now as well. Only had 11, came in averaging 19 and a half. So good defensive night for the most part from North Carolina, despite a poor offensive night. But I think we need to start with the defense. Give us some praise there. Yeah,
he had 8 points when Carolina made that push to close the thing out, and then the 3 he got late were kind of irrelevant. He was saddled at 8 at that point. Tar Heels did a good job forcing them to take uncomfortable shots. Some of them were open, especially early. They missed some really open shots early, and Pitt had an opportunity, a total missed opportunity to not build a bigger lead. It was just 6-0 when Carolina converted its first shot 6.5 minutes into the game, and Pitt should have been up like 12-0. 15-0, but they missed some early shots, and it came back to haunt them. And Carolina, to their credit, they weren't rattled missing all those shots early. They just kept plugging away, and they seemed a little sluggish at first, a little off, but they kind of got it going, and the physical play helped get it going. I think that they responded really well to it, and it showed on the other end, because later on in the half, Pitt had a stretch where it missed 12 straight shots from the field. And they were hurried shots, but when Diaz Graham when either one of them are taking a lot of threes, that's good basketball for the defense. They can hit those, but if that's what their method to their madness is going to be, then let them do it. 13 of Pitt's first 24 shots were threes. They only made 2 of them. It took forever. I think they ended up making 3 or 4 in the night. They missed
5 for 29
shot
from 3-point.
5 for 29.
Yeah, pretty poor.
Yeah, they were 3 for 24, I think, at one point. So credit Carolina for that. It wasn't just a case of them missing shots. The Tar Heels did a nicer job switching. They committed some fouls with switches. Ellie Cadeau is committing a lot of fouls due to the switching. He's getting in some interesting situations defensively, and that's where he's committing a lot of his fouls, but he'll learn. But I really think that they did a nice job being aggressive, not letting Pitt get a whole lot of conventional stuff in the paint at all, natural stuff. And I'll tell you, the way the Tar Heels, the way they approach things defensively, with the communication, you could tell the communication was really strong. This was one of those games where the stuff that the coach emphasizes over and over and over in practice, to the point where kids maybe sometimes don't hear it. This is one of those nights where they had to actually hear it, and they had to do it. The attention to detail on defense, the calling out the switches as often as they did, which at times hasn't been the case this year. So I thought that this was an attention to detail game on the defensive end. I thought it was a physical game for them on the defensive end. I thought they showed some grit. They didn't allow a lot of cuts, and they contended a lot of stuff. They allowed 57 points to Pitt, a quad 1 team in their building, and they won a game by 13 after starting out 0 for 10 from the floor. And the only way you do that is if you defend, man. You got bow up, roll up the sleeves, put on the chin strap, and defend. And we saw a gritty team tonight, no doubt about it. We saw a gritty team tonight, Jacob. I don't have the stats in front of me. I've been swamped getting stuff done between the game ending and now. But the kids in the locker room, I talked to Harrison Ingram, Seth Trimble, RJ Davis, and Armando Bacot, and Hubert. They were really, really proud of the defensive effort tonight. They were proud of the rebounding stuff, too, which we're going to talk about. They were just proud of the Popeye night. This was a chug spinach, flex your muscles, man up, hit the floor, get up, chip a little bit. Our Harrison Ingram, we kind of joked on press row that he's got some spice in his game.
Yeah.
And I told him that. He cracked up, started laughing. He's like, hey, I love it. He does. He's a guy that was 2 for 14. He missed his first 11, his first field goal with 6 minutes left, 5.5 minutes left. And he was balling out, and he was spicy out there. And I think it's infectious. Cormac Ryan pumping his fist when they get balls that go out of bounds, loose balls. This team has an edge that last year's team never had, and it was evident tonight, and it showed up on the defensive end and a few other areas.
Yeah, I tweeted it was a gritty win. That's kind of what the key word I'm using tonight. I think Carolina, it's good to win games like that too, and you're gonna have to win games like that in the ACC. You're not gonna always play great every night, but play well defensively, and you can set yourself up for situations like this again, because it wasn't a great offensive night from either team, to say the least. But AJ, let's talk about rebounding. You mentioned it a second ago. Out rebounded Pittsburgh. Let me see what the final stat was. 51-41. Final stat on the rebounding for North Carolina. Out rebounded one of the best teams in the country, the best team in the ACC right now, ranked 21st in rebound margin nationally is Pittsburgh. So, and we've talked a little bit. We've talked a little bit about this year during some podcasts and maybe some other Three Things videos. That this team has gotten out rebounded in some of its bigger games, and it's been a theme at times this season. I know some of that has to do with the way Carolina plays and whatnot, but again, when you can come into a place like this, not play too well offensively, not hit shots, particularly early on in that first half, but bounce back and out rebound a team as good as Pittsburgh is on the glass, leads to second chance points. And again, it plays a major factor in Carolina. Ended up winning this game by 13 points and what ended up being a relatively comfortable victory in the end. So again, rebounding, not something we're as used to talking about in this case right here, but tonight it played a major factor.
What was the second chance points? I know they held Pitt to 14 or 1 second chance point on 14 offensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. I think Carolina had 15 second chance points, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
There's the game. Mm-hmm. You can point to several areas, but they met the challenge. Harrison said after the game, he told a couple of us that they had been working. I asked him about the offensive rebounding because he had 15 rebounds, 5 on the offensive end. Ryan had a few offensive rebounds. Trimble followed his shot and got 2 on 1 possession. They were getting offensive rebounds from other guys outside of Armando. Mm-hmm. That has been something that Hubert has been very public about, saying, look, our 2, 3, and 4 have got a rebound. And they did tonight on the offensive end. They went after it. It was all part of the tenacity of their performance. And the thing that really impressed me, and if now that we've got, 13 games of intel, this club has a dog mentality. Mm-hmm. And I submit to you tonight and in the Oklahoma game, Oklahoma had 11 offensive rebounds and 2 second chance points. That's because Carolina challenged stuff at the rim in the paint when Oklahoma would get the offensive rebound. Or they kick it out, they would challenge stuff. They buckle down. Tonight, Pittsburgh, they had 14 offensive rebounds, 1 second chance point. So Carolina's last 2 games against power teams, they've given up 25 offensive rebounds and just 3 second chance points. That isn't because the other team just happens to miss or they don't handle those situations well. That's because Carolina's throwing some hips around. Mm-hmm. That's because Carolina's throwing some bows around that aren't called. And that's because Carolina's chopping it up in there. And this is, again, something this club has that it didn't have last year and didn't have a lot of the time 2 years ago. Didn't always even have when Royce last year. They were a great rebounding team, but they weren't great defensively in the paint. This is not a great team defensively in the paint, but they're pretty solid. Armando, by the way, I'm going to sidebar for a moment. He had one sequence where he got caught on a switch, rode with the guard down the lane, blocked a shot on the left side of the rim, and then he affected a Federico shot, I believe, by forcing him out. It was a missed shot, and he totally affected the shot, used his body and his leg. Armando has been playing much better defensively by rolling and keeping with people. He's showing his improved quickness on that end at times. He did so tonight. But for them to out-rebound Pitt, leading ACC rebounding team in the ACC, were on top of the country by 10 in this building, and Pitt had a 5 or 6 rebound edge at one point in the first half. It kind of took the Tar Heels a while to get all that traction going. It's like the Flintstones when the car's kind of set and they want to race off, and the wheels go around and around and around. It spins up some dirt, or I guess if you like drag racing, it spins up some smoke or whatever that is, and then boom, they took off with all the gritty stuff. Part of it, of course, was Seth Trimble's entry into the game because he's constantly pumping venom into the team every time he steps onto the floor. But that's a significant thing to look at. They got the message. Harrison said that that it's been an extra point of emphasis in practice, and if they weren't handling the offensive rebounding well to Hubert's satisfaction, he was making them run basically until they almost got sick.
Old school.
And so yeah, and I said, well, is that something you guys done all along? Or is it recent? No, it's recent. He said he's really getting on us about that. So
that's interesting.
Teams improved during the year. I think we're seeing a lot of examples of Hubert sort of finding areas to emphasize on, and also the attention to detail. There was a pretty good exchange with Hubert after the game about attention to detail, that they're working on situations in practice a lot right now because he really likes a lot of the things he sees with their regular play. So they're becoming more situational, end of game situations, other adverse scenarios that you come up with during the course of the game. And the one thing he's been trying to coach into them was being brawnier on the glass. And they got that tonight. So they matched rebounding an opponent with keeping the opponent from getting stuff off of its offensive rebounds. That's impressive to me. That's the kind of fiber that stays with you well into March.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Apologies for the audio tonight too, because I know there's is it a leaf blower behind you? Is that what we're hearing on the microphone right now?
I didn't know you could hear it that well.
Yeah, it just sounds like a whip.
That's one of the reasons why I'm up here, because I didn't want to be on there because it'd be really, really loud down there. But I can hear it a little bit, but
yeah, it sounds like kind of a whistle in the background. I was trying to figure out what it was. At first, it sounded like they were doing bleachers like they do in Chapel Hill.
It's not. At least it's not like in football where we always have like a helicopter come over. One time there were some guys that were cleaning the upper deck. I got into a fight.
Yeah, I started fighting up there. It was insane. Yeah. It was just crazy. Yeah, it's.
I hope if it comes to. I don't bring my big mic with me to games. It's just too cumbersome to take. The one I use at home, so that would kind of block out some of that.
Yeah,
so
it would definitely block some of it out. It is.
I
tough
apologize if you're hearing it too much.
Yeah, man. If people have been watching Three Things for a long time, they know this is how it goes. So if people who don't know, I'm gonna sidetrack real quick. Immediately after games, most arenas, especially in Chapel Hill, they start cleaning up the arena, start slamming the bleachers. It is one of the hardest times to try to record a video. So we do run into these kind of situations. Yeah. But from time to time.
Mine with Chelsea last Friday night after Charleston Southern, when they're slamming those bleachers.
Oh, God, man, it's the worst.
What it did was it was such a loud sound, it blurred what I was saying. So it sounded like my mic was going out, but it wasn't. So
you may
just have to use the practice gym every once in a while there.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea, man, because we're trying to get the best audio we can, but it's tough in arenas like this too, especially with Wi-Fi and all that jazz. But we'll go ahead and we got one more thing to talk about, so we'll wrap that up after this. But AJ, I said it earlier, gritty win for the Tar Heels. I think that's the main takeaway from tonight. Just scrolling on Twitter after the game, I think that's what fans are most pleased with. I get it. I said it. They didn't play the greatest game in the world. We did talk about some positive that they did do with the rebounding and defensive side of the ball, but it was by no means a vintage North Carolina performance tonight. It's by no means as good as this team can play. But when you can go on the road, beat a pretty good Pittsburgh team. I know they're struggling a little bit this year.
1-1 win, though.
Yeah, it's a Q1 win. You take that any day of the week, and to win it by double digits, despite not, again, shooting. You shoot 37% from the floor, essentially, and win by 13. You'll take that any day of the week, especially against a team like Pittsburgh on the road. And again, Hubert Davis's first win against Pittsburgh as well. So yeah, it's a lot of positives to take away from tonight, but gritty is the key word. If you step away with any word tonight, gritty, put that on your wall.
Yeah. Pitt's a good team. They lost at home to Clemson. Carolina gets played Clemson. That's an enormous game Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's a big one.
They lost at Syracuse, and they played really well for a while in that game. Then Syracuse picked up. Syracuse is not bad. I know they're getting punked by Duke right now, but that was a game for a while. Pitt's 0-3, but I think Pitt's going to be fine. I think they're going to be an NCAA tournament team. This is a quad one win. Carolina's got 3 of them now, by the way. And they got 2 more coming up on the road here, Clemson and State. The thing here's sort of here's the mark in the sand with this game. Last year, with 11.5 minutes left in the game in this building, it was almost 1 year to the day. It was 2 days after the bowl game last year when I had to make that crazy trip to San Diego to Pittsburgh to home. They were up 9 with 11 and a half minutes left. It just did not handle it well, and Pitt beat them. And that was the locker room after the game that wasn't great. We got Armando after the game, and he was sort of talking to us and projecting to the team.
Yeah.
And that was sort of one of those games where, okay, this club just doesn't have that edge. They don't have that layer. Tonight, they were in the exact same situation. Up 9, 11 and a half minutes left, and they closed the deal. This is a different team. I know that I said a couple weeks ago we're going to talk about comparing, but I think this is one of those moments where it's okay to do that because it illustrates what this team has. And what this team has is it's got that fiber. It's got that extra level. I'm using a bunch of cliches here, but sometimes cliches state the case pretty well. They know how to dig down. Elliot Cadeau hit the floor 5 times tonight. When I told Seth Trimble that, he started cracking up because 5, I said 5. He's going to need to be in one of those football ice baths. So I just think that if you're looking for an identity of this team, I think one of the things that could well become its identity, we're seeing it process right now, is it's a gritty bunch with some dog in them. You don't look around sometimes and say, God, Armando's got to be more physical because the team will follow. Armando's just sometimes another guy when it comes to the muckraking out there because Cormac's going to get into it. Jalen Withers is going to get into it. How about that hang time on his putback slam tonight? Lefty.
Impressive, yeah.
Harrison Ingram has just got all kinds of dog in him. RJ's a dog. So there's so much more of that on the floor. And there's no statistic for it, but if there was, or in football parlance, if there was a PFF grade for it, the Tar Heels would grade out really well on that tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I think they would have graded out well against Oklahoma, and quite frankly, I think they've done it a lot this year. They're just sometimes they've been outplayed. That happens. It's going to happen again. They're going to need that at Clemson this weekend because Clemson's going to bring the lunch pails too. But they got skill. They're more skilled. They have more talent than Pitt. So Carolina's going to have to play much better than it did tonight to beat Clemson. But and here's another thing. This is all part of what I'm talking about. I asked RJ afterward. I said, you only finished with 15 points. I think he was like 4 for 15 from the floor, 5 for 16. Something. He didn't have a great shooting night, and they were locking him up a lot. He told me that he's never been doubled on the perimeter as much as he was tonight. And there were times when the Tar Heels kind of caught standing and watching, and RJ was in some tough spots. But he agreed that for them to start out 0 for 10 on the floor, from the floor, win on the road by 13, get a quad 1 win on a night where his 20-point streak ends, and he has a pedestrian 15, if you will. For them to win like that, he said, is a huge growth point for this team because one of the things I'd warned about, they get too reliant on RJ putting 25 up. What happens on the night on the road where he doesn't? At some point, they're going to lose. At some point, they kind of lose what they should have become. So that's a great sign. They didn't need him to go off in order to win tonight. They were able to find a bunch of other things to do to get them into the winner's circle, and that is a growth game. That is a learn game. That's a come-together game. Then, by the way, the bench gave him 18 points, I think 11 rebounds. Gave him some really gritty minutes. So, again, going back to Oklahoma, there are a lot of positives. Even Kentucky, they didn't play well. They had a chance to send that thing into overtime. So, grit does that for you. We don't play well. When you're not pretty and it's not aesthetically pleasing, like tonight wasn't a lot, but you're still able to win or still able to compete against really good teams, that's something that hasn't always been the case in Chapel Hill the last few years, and it is right now, and that's something that should show up every game. You're not always going to hit your shots. Sometimes you're going to play a team and the guy's just smoking hot, but that stuff should be with you every time you take the court. And we're starting to see that become a part of this identity. We got to see it some more. I'm not going to say it's their identity yet. They still got to go on the road and play 2 games. They're going to really challenge them coming up here in the next week. But I think they're trending in that direction, that's a big part of their identity.
Yeah, at Clemson, at NC State away, it doesn't get any easier for the Tar Heels, put it that way. But a fun matchup coming up this weekend in Death Valley. I'm looking forward to that one. If Carolina can pull that one out, then Carolina fans will be feeling really, really good about what this team can do this season. But again, 10-3 on the year, 2-0 in ACC play, a tough stretch of waits, but we'll see what happens. But Carolina 1-0 through that tough road stretch, and you'll take this win any day of the week, 70-57 over Pittsburgh. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. As soon as we finish up the podcast, the guy with the leaf blower turns his leaf blower off finally. So welcome to Three Things post-game podcast right there. You can't make it up, man. I mean,
maybe it's Jason Capel.
Yeah, I guess we should have sat here for 30 minutes and just waited for it to turn off.
Did that one go over your head? Did you get what I just said?
No, I get the Jason Cable reference. Carolina fans were all over Twitter, and I shouldn't say there weren't a ton of them, but I did see a handful of tweets pointed at Jason Cable after the win today.
Come on. Jason Cable gave them 4 years.
Yeah, man. I mean, hey, as soon as he said what he said last year, I was like, he's dead to a lot of Carolina fans now. He's dead to them.
Whatever.
Isn't that awesome? Though that's
it's fun. It's fun. I mean, I can't view things that way, but I get it. It makes it fun. And I bet you Jason doesn't give a rat's you know what.
Nah, yeah, based on his comments last year, I don't think he cares too much. But things can change, and give it a couple of years, it'll wear off. People forget about it, and then he'll be the good guy again. So, but again, Carolina 70-57 win over Pittsburgh. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another episode of our Three Things post game podcast. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell too, and keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your coverage from tonight's game. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.